Hey everyone, welcome back to the Triathlon Weekly News Roundup presented by thefeed.com. My name's Travis. Happy Halloween. Thanks for joining me again. It's been a couple weeks and it's felt weird not doing the weekly news, so I'm so excited to be back. Last time you saw me, I was in Kona, and actually during the race, I ended up bashing my elbow, leaving a piece of myself literally on that pier, and spent the day watching most of the race in the ER. So that wasn't the best for me. And then I also got sick on the way home, so I wasn't able to make a video about it. And then went to Colorado and Nebraska to visit my family. So now we're back. I'm super excited to be doing this again. Even though the season is coming to a close, there's still lots of big news headlines that have happened. I'm not gonna go over the ones you've probably heard so far, and if I do, I'll just touch on some interesting parts that you might not have heard. We'll be also previewing 4 upcoming races this weekend and diving into the news headlines you probably haven't heard this week. So thanks so much for tuning in. Let's get started though. First with the one race that did happen this weekend. It was the World Triathlon Cup Miyazaki, which happened in Japan, where Gwen Jorgensen picked up some more important World Triathlon ranking points on her way to trying to get into the US's Olympic team for Paris. She finished in second place behind an impressive Bianca Seragni of Italy, who usually is at the front of the race on the swim, but unsurprisingly outrunning Gwen Jorgensen and Jean Lahaire, who has been on a tear this year. So kudos to her. That was a fantastic win, but a great second place again for Gwen, who is really climbing up those leaderboards, still behind most of the American women, unfortunately for her, but she's got a lot of time left still before the Olympic Games, and it's looking good for her. There was also a breakthrough performance from a Great Britain athlete that you need to know about called Hugo Milner. Now, he's a Harvard Environmental Science and Public Policy graduate who left behind a promising running career to pursue triathlon. We've seen that lots and lots before, but he ran a 29:33 here to take the win, which is absolutely absurd because apparently that was a really hard run course. And yeah, he throws his name in with the hat amongst a talented GB team to try and get a Paris spot. And yeah, I'm gonna be keeping my eye out on him because fast runners seem to be doing really well right now. And it seems like if you manage to have a good swim and great transitions and you get into the right bike pack, you have a chance for the win right now. But if you don't have a good swim, which a lot of these guys don't, then there's no chance at all. So keep an eye out for him. He is one for the future. But moving on from there, on to the news. I want to start with Kona real quick because A, I didn't get to show a lot of these shots that I was proud of taking while I was there, but B, because there was a couple stories that I wanted you guys to know if you didn't hear them. There was Anne Haug saying that she was using proteins for fueling. She said this in the press conference after the race, and I was blown away by that. You know, we've been hearing a lot about Dan Plews, which we'll talk about in a little bit. You know, he's the low carb guy using fat for fueling, but proteins, I had not heard of this before. Caught me by surprise. Apparently she suffered from corona diabetes, and she's worked with her nutritionist and has tested out using proteins for fuel, and that has really done well for her. She's ran a 2:48 marathon there. So I think this is something we might see more of in the future. I'd love to get her on a podcast to discuss how and when and what she uses specifically. So yeah, I'm gonna be reaching out to her for that. That was pretty cool. And then Els Visser, you might have heard of this one, cycling with just one pedal after her pedal broke off, 35 kilometers. So those are the 2 big stories I wanted to make sure you got from Kona. I know it was a couple weeks ago, and in the triathlon news world, that is forever ago. But yeah, those were the 2 cool ones I heard from there. What did you guys think of the race? I haven't got to ask you yet. I thought the broadcast was awesome, just having the women being there and just all the hype around the pro women was so fun. The press conference just being for the women was awesome. And yeah, I kind of like that aspect of it being split up for the pros. Although, of course, a lot of people saying they missed both having the men and the women there. So let me know what you thought. Heard a lot of people say this too on the broadcast. They missed telling a lot of stories further back in the pro field. I agree with that as always. I missed that this year they didn't have the ironmannow.com option where you could choose the screens like they did last year to see what you wanted to watch. So it was a pity that wasn't there. But otherwise, I thought it was fantastic. I actually, like I said, because of my elbow, watched most of it in the hospital on my phone while I was getting stitched up. So yeah, I was just like you watching the broadcast, unfortunately. But yeah, thought it was great. But then moving on there for that other piece of news that came out that week, the Ironman Pro Series. Now, I'm sure you've heard lots about this, heard podcasts about it. I think it's gonna really challenge the PTO, although I do think it is just mainly for the full distance athletes. But I think it's great because then I think we'll see a lot of middle distance athletes. Like I've heard Paula Findlay saying on her podcast that she's interested in giving the full distance a go. But yeah, I think it's a great opportunity for lower ranked pros as well to now race some smaller races that might not have big names at, to make some money, and just overall more money in the sport and more money to going to the pros is always what I've wanted. So I'm really happy for that. However, I do see the one downside with this is that it adds more confusion for newcomers who are following this sport. Another series to follow. PTO, we know, has got theirs. Challenge also has theirs. Not everybody knows about that. Hopefully in some way these organizations can band together and really be able to keep us on track with who's winning what. And yeah, so that's my only problem with it, but otherwise I think it's fantastic. But then I brought it up because you might have missed a point that I only caught later on from Triathlete's article on the subject, and that was that the way pros qualify for Ironman and 70.3 World Championships might be changing after 2024. Messick hinted at it. He said, "We created a system where the athletes have the ability to race with us enough to qualify for a World Championship, but then they've got a lot of alternates to be able to go make money racing elsewhere, and they're taking it." So he said that about the current qualification system that was updated back in 2019 after they had the KPR system allowed them to qualify. So we might see that changing. Might go back to a point system. What do you think about that? I don't think the pros would enjoy that, but if they're all racing this pro series, we'd have to wait and see. And then one last thing on that, I heard this on the Real Triathlon Squad podcast. Jackson Laundrie said he might be one of those athletes who might not fall in the category of either the PTO race series or the Ironman series, since Ironman is so focused on the full distance for their pro series. So I think there might be a lot of other athletes. I was looking at the PTO rankings, and I could spot quite a few names who might struggle and find themselves in no man's land in between both of these big series. So they might find themselves racing more of the challenge races to take advantage of the challenge world bonus. But anyways, moving on from there, because this is in direct competition of the PTO. Is the PTO in trouble right now? I've heard this from a couple of podcasts who've been saying they're struggling to get their events organized and set in stone. They told us when they made the partnership with World Triathlon and announced the expanding series that the events should be announced in October. Well, today's the last day and I haven't heard anything. I've been refreshing the news pages today and I haven't seen anything. Just 2 races announced so far in Singapore and Ibiza, where they already were. They do have age group racing, which is great, but yeah, I just wonder if they're gonna be able to release all of these events soon, because I know that is a big deal, not only for us fans, but also for the pro athletes. Talbot said in the latest Pro Tri News episode that Lionel's already signed up to do Oceanside as his first race because the PTO events and the series isn't set in stone yet. So this is really interesting. I think Oceanside might be the largest pro field ever seen if PTO doesn't start getting their races announced and their series in order. And I'm sure they're probably working and trying to figure out a lot of the contracts and getting those top 16 athletes to race at every race. But yeah, really looking forward to what they announce next. I've heard many rumors of where that could be. But speaking of that, USAT announced their national championships will take place in Atlantic City, not Milwaukee, this next year in 2024. I'm definitely gonna go to that race because I loved my experience there in Milwaukee, but part of me loving that experience was being able to watch the PTO professional athletes, and USAT didn't say that PTO was going to be joining them there. So I'm really wondering to see where the PTO will go for the US Open, if they will go there eventually, if they just haven't figured out all the final details. I'll hopefully be interviewing the CEO on my podcast of USAT, so I'll have to ask her and see if I can get an inside scoop there. But yeah, really interested to see what the PTO comes up with, and hopefully soon. But that actually leads me to a new announcement I'm super excited for, and that is because 82 Bikes has joined on as a supporter of the channel. When they reached out to me, I was over the moon because I've been using one of their bikes for a couple of years now, my Speed Freak triathlon bike, and I absolutely love it. Everybody who I've let try out the bike is blown away, and they've got a new model out right now, which is even better. And they make high performance, high quality bikes, but most importantly for me, high value, and they're completely customizable, extremely aerodynamic as they're tested in the A2 wind tunnel. And yeah, there's so much more I can tell you about. I highly recommend checking out their website. And when you head to their website, you will see that they have a new bike that is now available for pre-order, the all new all-road Rogue road bike, which is exactly something that I've been looking for because it can fit up to a 35 mil tire, which means you can swap out wheels and take it on pretty much any road. So a great bike if you're looking to maybe not have a gravel and a road bike, but just one or the other to convince my girlfriend, for example. I think this one would be great for you. So please do check out their website. Let me know what you think. I love my bike, and you'll be seeing a lot more of it in the future. But back to the news, and back to speaking of Lionel Sanders, who I spoke about in my last news video I made. It looks like he will be on the move next summer. Tucson is just a little bit too hot for him and his muscles.
My heart rate would be above max. It's just my muscles. It's my muscles. It's just my muscles. It's my muscles.
Lionel looks like he might be leaving that new training group he found next summer to find some more speed in his legs. It was a really interesting video on his lactate series, and exciting to see how he continues to train with his new protocol indoors, and yeah, see how fast he gets for next season. But speaking of moving, we also have Max Newman announcing he is looking for a new home in Andorra. So it looks like the European Open champion, who I think a lot of us have forgotten about since he won that race in Ibiza, will be joining Jan Frodeno. And yeah, I think he is one name that should not be forgotten about because he was actually one of my favorites for the World Championships in Nice. He's an all-rounder, he's brilliant, and now he won't have to travel from Australia to all of those big races. So I think, yeah, Max is making a good decision there. We also have Form now allowed in the World Triathlon sanctioned races. So we'll see a lot of people swimming with the Form goggles that will have their metrics, their heart rate, their speed, and whatnot. What do you think about that? Is that something that you would do? Would you like to swim with all those metrics? I think this is the way the triathlon is going to go in the future. I think a lot of goggles will start to look to put this in their goggles, and yeah, will we ever see pros racing with goggles like this? I think it's just the beginning. So yeah, let me know down below, would you use goggles with all that data? Do you want that? Or will that be far too distracting? I know for me, I think some days I'd like it, some days I wouldn't. So yeah, I think that is pretty big news though. And then the last piece of news is that Flora Duffy is back to training. She says her knee is coming along nicely. She has been out for such a long time, and it just makes you wonder, has she lost too much time? Is she going to be fast enough and fit enough to defend her Olympic gold medal in Paris? We'll just have to wait and see. A lot of women have started coming out of the woodworks, and they are getting faster and faster. But if anybody can do it, it is definitely Flora Duffy. But then moving on finally to the 4 races we have coming up this weekend. Oh my goodness, Ironman Florida is massive. I can't believe it isn't broadcast. I'm a little heartbroken about it, but it is a big race because 3 men's and women's slots for the world champs are on offer. That kicks off at 6:40 a.m. The men racing, we've got Magnus Ditlev coming in as the favorite, but we've also got Joe Skipper, Rudy Von Berg, Dennis Chevreau, Matt Hansen, Gregory Barnaby, just to name a few. My money's on Magnus. Hard to bet against him, but I can see Skipper and Chevreau, who both didn't have great performances in Nice, really coming through and having a great result here. So yeah, can't wait to be tracking that one. And then for the women's, I think I'm actually a little bit more excited to see this one, to be honest, because I think it's going to be close. Sky Monch, 7th place in Kona, fantastic result. She's got a new coach. She is looking better than ever, but so is Jocelyn McCauley, who is 10th place in Kona. She had surgery, I believe, earlier this year, and yeah, she just keeps getting better and better. And then there's Alice Alberts, who's coming off of 2 Ironman wins. She skipped Kona. she is looking better and better at each race as well. And yeah, I think between them and a few other women on that start list, it is going to be a good one. So can't wait for that race. But we've also got 70.3 Los Cabos, which has got some big names as well. Trevor Foley, Jason West, Jackson Laundrie, Mark Dubrick, Eric Lagerstrom are all taking on this race, but I think they'll be fighting against Tomas Rodriguez in his home country. He won 70.3 Cozumel. He can run like the wind, and I think they will all be trying to beat him. And then on the women's side, Paula Findlay will be the favorite for sure, but Jackie Herring, Sarah Perez-Sala, there's some really good names there. Leslie Smith as well. And Paula doesn't like the heat, we know that. But yeah, I think she'd be the clear favorite, and I think she'll be really glad Tamara Jewett isn't on the start list trying to chase her down again. But then from there, we also have a live streamed race this weekend, one of the biggest triathlon events in the world, one that I'd love to get to one day, the USECODE Triathlon. It's a non-draft Olympic distance race for the pros. Ashley Gentle looking to take her 10th title there. You'd have to say she's a shoe-in for that one. And then Hayden Wild will be taking on his first non-draft in a while. You'd also have to say he is the favorite for that one, but he's going up against some big names as well. He's also signed up for Melbourne 70.3 the following weekend, where I believe he is looking to try and get a world championship slot for a home country 70.3 world champs in Taupo next year in December. A really good time of the year for him. And yeah, we know he likes this non-draft racing, and excited to see how he does. So keep an eye out for him in the next couple of weeks. But then lastly, there is the Pan American Games as well happening on the short course side of things in Chile. So keep your eye out on that. I'll be rooting for the US athletes down there. Lots of different events taking place. And yeah, should be good to see who comes out on top. But finally, moving on from the races, we're on to the article of the week. And this one is from Triathlete, the 8 secrets of the world's fastest age grouper. Now we know that Dan Plews broke the Ironman age group world record at Ironman Sacramento with a crazy 7:56 time. It was a downriver swim, but still you can't take anything away from that result. Dan is known as the low carb guy's Chelsea Sodaro's coach as well, and yeah, fascinatingly, he shared that he only ate 1 gel during the marathon, and yeah, that is just mind-blowing to me. I'd love to know Dan's secrets, like Ann Haug's secrets as well, as to how they fuel. But yeah, in this article he shares so much more on how he did it, his top best 8 tips and tricks, and yeah, highly recommend checking that one out. Video of the week this week goes to this drone footage of this cycling race. Something that I'd love to see more and more in triathlon is more drone footage. It's extremely hard to do in the broadcast and to use it for broadcast footage, but I think as technology develops, I would love to see more and more of it. I've seen some great FPV drone shots of Ari Clow on his YouTube channel, as well as Ironman using it for some of their preview in Lati. And yeah, I would love to see this in a race one day. What do you think? Obviously it's hard to do, but I hope to see more of it in the future. And then finally, humor of the week. This one goes to Cody Beals, perfectly timed on the Halloween theme. Trying to go out for a night run. It's a perfect Halloween video. If you don't follow Cody, you absolutely need to. He is a genius as far as the comedy goes, and yeah, well worth a follow. And then lastly, onto the hot question of the week, and this one is back to what we were talking about earlier. Who will have the better series next year, or the more success, do you think? Ironman's new series or the PTO's series? Now, I think this will come down to a lot of the things, but some of the things I'll be looking for are the broadcast. I think Ironman will definitely be going with Outside next year and for the next few years, as they had a 5-year partnership. But will they put that on YouTube as well? We saw in 70.3 Worlds that they had to end up putting it on YouTube because it wasn't working. Outside's had a lot of criticism as well for their broadcast. So will that get better? Will they improve that for this upcoming series? You'd have to imagine that they would. And then PTO, you know, they've been trying to get better and better with each video and broadcast that they put out. But on that, do you think, yeah, the storytelling and the media really matters? How each company is able to hype up their races? Is it the age group racing that really makes a difference? Now PTO has age group racing at their events. Will that make their series bigger? So many things that could determine the answer to this question. I'd love to know your thoughts down below, so please do share them. But other than that, that is what I wanted to hear, and that's all the news I got for you this week. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. As always, I've got some exciting videos coming out, some fun ones just about me as well. I've got one where I share about all my races this year and why it was my favorite year so far in triathlon. Also, I've got one coming about how I swam the length of the lake behind me in my DeVore wetsuit, and does a high performance wetsuit really make the difference? And then also some top 10 videos and some Daily Tri Award videos like I did last year to end the year. So lots more to come. Thank you guys for all the support over this time. And if you have any feedback and stuff you'd like to see from me in the future, things you would change about even this show, I'd appreciate it. So thank you again, and we'll see you in the next one. Have a good one. Happy Halloween.